The NFL is going to look completely different 5 months from now than how it currently does. The reason for this is if we go team by team and look at the quarterback situations along with their contracts, you're going to see there are about 10 to 12 quarterbacks that actually have safe jobs next year. Starting off with the AFC East, yes, Tua is safe. Yes, Josh Allen is safe. But outside of that, if we're going to be looking at the New York Jets, while 100% I understand that Aaron Rodgers is most likely the starting quarterback, we need to ask ourselves, how good is he going to be? Because while I loved Aaron Rodgers, the player 5 years ago, loved the player 10 years ago, loved the player 15 years, that was a long time. Now you are looking at Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback that going into 2024 is going to be a 41-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles. I understand he wanted to make it seem like he would be back this year, blah, blah, blah. He's a 41-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles. Even if he is a first ballot Hall of Famer, he is a player that I'm going to have serious questions about his ability in 2024. The Jets are going to be unable to get out of this contract, however, where in 2024, he has $66 million in the dead cap. And in 2025, his 42-year-old season, he has $49 million on the dead cap. Going over to New England, this is a team that is an absolute debacle at the quarterback position. While 100%, I understand you may want to make the argument, well, Mason, their offensive line was bad. Well, Mason, they had nobody to throw to. While Mason, their running back situation was... At the end of the day, Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi came out and played some of the worst quarterback play in the entire NFL. You had an accumulative 5.3 adjusted yards per pass attempt between both these quarterbacks. Laughably bad. It literally does not get worse. And we can almost guarantee you that neither Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi will be a starting quarterback going into next season. Right now, New England does hold the number 3 overall pick in this year's draft. Maybe they make a play up to 1. We'll talk about the Chicago Bears later on. But going over to AFC West, clearly the Chiefs, Chargers, yeah, they're safe here. You have Mahomes, you have Herbert. But outside of that, the Broncos have already said that they are going to be cutting Russell Wilson by the time we get to March. So if you look at their updated depth chart currently, they're going to be rolling into 2024 with Jarrett Stidham as the only quarterback on their depth chart. So we have no idea who the guy will be in Denver next season. Going over to the Raiders, while Aiden O'Connell showed some promise in year 1, if we head over to the road of his screener and look at all rookie quarterbacks since the year 2000 that played at least 8 games that had a similar adjusted yards per pass attempt, passing yards per game, and rushing yards per game, the rookie quarterbacks included Davis Mills, Derek Carr, Mike Glennon, Andy Dalton, Matt Leinart, Brian Leftwich. So really nobody here that you'd be excited about. Pretty much best case, and I repeat, best case scenario is he turns into Andy Dalton, which probably isn't happening. And you could easily see the Raiders moving on from Aiden O'Connell next season based off what we've historically had. Going over to the AFC North, you have Baltimore and Cincinnati as safe quarterbacks. Outside of that, we go over to Cleveland. Cleveland's in a spot where Deshaun Watson has been straight up bad over the past 2 seasons. And I thought Watson would excel in Cleveland. I was looking at a quarterback that in Houston had averaged about 8.6 adjusted yards per pass attempt through his first 4 seasons there. That's an elite level mark. Deshaun Watson was an elite level quarterback while he was a Houston Texan. But if you look at what he's done in Cleveland, he's averaging 6.1 adjusted yards per pass attempt. That would put him as a bottom 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL this season. And he's been a bottom 5 to 10 quarterback in the NFL in the past 2 years for the Cleveland Browns. Also only averaging 184 passing yards per game in Cleveland in comparison to 270 passing yards per game in Houston. But you look at the contract situation, they have $209 million on the dead cap for 2024. You have $136 million in the dead cap for 2025. You have $72 million on the dead cap for 2026. So it does not matter if Deshaun Watson's been bad over the past 2 years. It looks like the Cleveland Browns are stuck with Deshaun Watson, which is why in my mind, I think he's actually an intriguing buy in Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you look at my Dynasty rankings on flockfantasy.com for Dynasty Superflex Leagues, you will see that I have him ranked higher than where the community rankings have him on flockfantasy.com. Now, going over to Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett is someone that has to move down rankings because now we have 2 seasons of data for Kenny Pickett, where if we look at his comps from a first 2 years perspective, you have Davis Mills, Geno Smith, Christian Ponder, Blaine Gabbert, Sam Bradford, Mark Sanchez, Trent Edwards, Brian Leftwich, David Carr. Really, there's nobody here that you can be excited about that would comp to Kenny Pickett. He's been atrocious. He's had one game in his NFL career with 2 or more passing touchdowns. And it looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers just benched him for Mason Rudolph. And we have no idea who Pittsburgh's going to have at quarterback next season. Now, going over to the AFC South, on paper, a lot of these quarterbacks look safe. While 100% Trevor Lawrence will be the starting quarterback for Jacksonville for a very long time, it's hard to see Trevor Lawrence playing as that elite level option that we initially thought he would be. If you look at what Lawrence has done through the first 2 years of his NFL career, he's looking very comparable to guys like Kyle Allen, Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill, Andy Dalton, Aaron Brooks. And I apologize, that's for years 2 and 3. Those were quarterbacks that had similar play. Someone like Mariota may be a decent comp, to be honest. So I do want to reiterate, he's safe, but he hasn't been nearly as good as advertised. Going over to Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson looked very good in a small sample in Indianapolis, but the issue is Anthony Richardson's a quarterback that relies on his athleticism, relies on his rushing ability, and that's clearly leading to all these injuries. We go over and look at his injury tracker since the year 2021. Hamstring injury, March 2021. Hamstring injury, September 2021. Concussion, October 2021. Knee injury, early November 2021. Knee injury, late November 2021. Another knee injury, mid-December 2021. 2022, the ankle. 2022, the shoulder. 2022, the hamstring. 2023, the concussion. In 2023, misses the season with the shoulder injury. Obviously, I don't want to come out here and say a player's injury prone after their first season in the NFL. That would be extremely reckless for me to say. But if you are looking at a quarterback that has this kind of playing style, that is seeing these consistent injuries, it's at least something to keep in the back of your mind. Now, going over to Houston, obviously CJ Stroud has been absolutely phenomenal. Stroud looks like he is a franchise quarterback for the long term. But going over to Tennessee, someone that I really wanted to root for this year, he actually was so nice to us at the NFL draft this past season, was Will Levis. But it's hard to act like Will Levis had a good rookie season when his rookie year comes to Mac Jones, Davis Mills, Sam Darnold, Mike Glennon, Ryan Tannehill, Brandon Weeden, Andy Dalton. We're essentially sending up a prayer that Will Levis turns into Andy Dalton, and more likely than not, he has no future in the NFL. Now, going over to the NFC East, we are looking at Dallas and Philadelphia with safe quarterbacks where you can be confident that they will be their guys going into the future. Outside of that, the Giants just gave Daniel Jones a $160 million contract, which about half of it was guaranteed. In 2024, he has about $70 million on the cap hit. So yeah, there's no chance that they move on from him in 2024. That dead cap comes down to $2 million in 2025. So you could potentially see Daniel Jones as a quarterback that only has 1 year left in New York, and they possibly draft someone this season to maybe bridge that gap for the future. And just to show exactly how bad Daniel Jones has been throughout his entire NFL career, he has averaged 6.3 adjusted yards per pass attempt. The only quarterbacks that this season had lower than 6.3 adjusted yards per pass attempt were Kenny Pickett, Aiden O'Connell, Ryan Tannehill, Zach Wilson, Sam Howell, Joshua Dobbs, Mac Jones, and Bryce Young. And Daniel Jones done that through his entire NFL career, and the man's going to be 27 next season. The time's out for Daniel Jones. Going over to Washington, Sam Howell in year 2 comps to guys like Drew Lock, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Allen, Ryan Tannehill, Mark Sanchez. You're really just hoping that he somehow turns into Baker Mayfield. The reality of the situation is, if you are looking at the updated NFL draft order, right now you actually have Washington moving up to the 2nd overall pick. So we can assume that Washington is most likely not going to be sticking with Sam Howell going into 2024. And this will be a team that hopefully grabs a quarterback at the very top of the draft. And if not, maybe they make a play for a veteran such as Russell Wilson. Now, going over to the NFC West, we can say Brock Purdy, safe. Purdy playing phenomenally. Going over to Los Angeles, looking at Matthew Stafford, maybe he started slow at the beginning of the year. Stafford is pretty much safe. He's really turned the corner. And at the same time, They have no other option. He's owed $86 million guaranteed in 2024. He's owed $37 million guaranteed in 2025. Even if he's 36, 37 years old, Matthew Stafford will be the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, going over to Seattle and Arizona, this is where things get a little bit washy. Kyler Murray for sure is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL this next season. The question is he a starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals? Well, I would say, yeah, most likely the Cardinals take their 2 first-round selections this season and they continue to build around Kyler Murray, a quarterback they just gave $230 million. Where there's smoke, there is fire, and there's definitely been a ton of smoke about the Cardinals possibly moving on from Kyler Murray this offseason. Then going over to the Seattle Seahawks, you had a very reasonable contract from Geno Smith this offseason where they gave him $27 million guaranteed. They could save $14 million by moving on from Geno Smith in 2024. Will be 34 years old. You can make an argument that Geno Smith maybe has played well enough for him to deserve this job going into next season. I wouldn't be surprised if Geno was the quarterback there next year or if he wasn't the quarterback, to be honest. Now, going over to the NFC North, this is where I know people are going to hate us a lot in this video. Jared Goff looks like he has played himself into another contract extension. I mean, if you're looking at the Lions, they're 11-5 right now. Jared Goff is sitting at 7.4 adjusted yards per pass attempt over the past 3 seasons in Detroit. He is most likely going to be a Detroit Lion going forward. Going over to what we have with Jordan Love. Jordan Love is most likely safe as well. Now, the question is, do you give Jordan Love some massive contract extension? Probably not. Maybe you give him more so he prove a type deal. Maybe you wait till the very end. You franchise tag him. But nonetheless, I believe that Jordan Love has played himself into another year as the starting quarterback, averaging 240 passing yards per game at 7.2 adjusted yards per pass attempt. Now, what'll be interesting is looking at the Minnesota Vikings here. The Vikings have a quarterback in Kirk Cousins that doesn't really have that guaranteed contract in 2024, while at the same time, you are looking at Cousins as a 36-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles. So while most likely Kirk Cousins will be their quarterback next season, by no means is it an absolute guarantee. I think that this will be a situation that we need to continue to monitor going forward. Very similar to what we were talking about with Aaron Rodgers previously. Rodgers a little bit different, 41 compared to Cousins at 36. Obviously, Rodgers has always been a much better quarterback than Cousins, but still, with these super old guys coming off torn Achilles, it is something that naturally I am very much concerned with. And then going over to Justin Fields, I know this is going to be what everybody focuses in on all offseason. And I'll be the first person to say, I thought the Chicago Bears should have kept the number 1 overall pick last year and taken their favorite quarterback at that selection. Now, that was before I knew what Carolina would give up for it. Clearly, last season, the Chicago Bears made the correct decision in trading away their number 1 overall selection, getting DJ Moore and a ton of assets, including the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft, to go through and build around Justin Fields. Now, if you were looking at what Justin Fields has done in 2023, I understand that this player has a fan base in the NFL like no other. If you talk down on Justin Fields, people are coming at you. They're going to get personal. But let's evaluate what Justin Fields has done this season. 6.6 adjusted yards per pass attempt. One of the worst marks in the NFL. 5 and 7 after the Chicago Bears were able to get him additional pieces. He now moves his NFL career marks to 6.3 adjusted yards per pass attempt, one of the worst starting quarterbacks over the past 3 seasons, and he is 10 and 27 over the past 3 seasons. If you look at Mitchell Trubisky is a quarterback that through his first 3 years in Chicago had 23 wins, who had 18 losses. I am not sitting here and saying that Mitchell Trubisky is better than Justin Fields. But to pencil in Justin Fields to be the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears in 2024, when Chicago yet again has the number 1 overall pick and another pick inside the top 10, would be a reckless thing to do. And I think the Chicago Bears are most likely going to weigh all options with that number 1 selection. And of course, all options include selecting Caleb Williams at number 1 overall. Now, going over to what we have with our next division. The NFC South is a division where I don't know if there's a single guy that's safe here. I mean, with Baker Mayfield, I would want to believe that he has played himself into a contract next year. 7.5 adjusted yards per pass attempt. I mean, look great at times, obviously a little bit inconsistent. But if you look across the entire NFL landscape, the free agents that are going to be available, the guys that this team could get in the NFL draft, picking right in the middle of round 1, I would assume that the Buccaneers will be in a better spot to just go ahead and extend Baker Mayfield, maybe with a similar type deal with what you just had with Geno Smith. But that is by no means a guarantee. Going over to Derek Carr. Derek Carr continues to be the definition of mid, yet again averaging 7.1 adjusted yards per pass attempt, which is exactly in line with where he's been his entire NFL career, which has lasted for 10 seasons now. Derek Carr is not good, never going to get good, but he is owed $53 million guaranteed in 2024, so he may be stuck as the New Orleans Saints starting quarterback next season. Now, going over to the Atlanta Falcons, there's no way in hell the starting quarterbacks on the roster right now. 6.2 adjusted yards per pass attempt this season. One of the worst marks in the entire NFL. Doesn't matter if it's Ritter, doesn't matter if it's Heineke. These guys will be gone going into the future. And going over to Carolina, this is a quarterback that has to stay. They just invested the #1 overall pick into him. But if we are looking at how bad Bryce Young has been, for rookie quarterbacks to comp to Bryce Young, since the year 2000, you have Kenny Pickett, Zach Wilson, Derek Carr, Geno Smith, Christian Ponder, Josh Freeman, Chad Hutchinson, and Chris Weineke or Winke. I don't even freaking know. The man went out there, averaged 5.0 adjusted yards per pass attempt, 10 interceptions to 11 passing touchdowns. Unbelievably bad, 185 passing yards per game. And I understand you're going to make the argument, well, Mason, it's the situation. Bryce Young would have been great on any other team. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. We've seen bad teams ruin a ton of quarterbacks. Go past 20 years with the New York Jets and see what happens every time they draft a quarterback. Over the past 20 years with the Cleveland Browns, see what happens after every time they draft a quarterback. Maybe ownership's going to ruin Bryce Young. I don't know. We can sit here and play the what if game. What if he went to another team? What if he would have been better? That's not the case. He's in Carolina. They gave up every asset to get him. They have nothing to surround him with. And he looks like he is most likely going to be an NFL bust, regardless of if it is quote unquote his fault or not. Now, I just want to recap teams that maybe need a quarterback or don't have their guaranteed situation going into the future. Include the Giants, Commanders, Seahawks, Cardinals, Vikings, Bears, Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Jets, Pats, Raiders, Broncos, Steelers, and Titans. There's a lot up in the air right now in the NFL. If you're looking at the quarterbacks coming in this draft, according to NFL Mock Draft Database, there are 3 guys that project out to be top 10 picks, including Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. You have some guys that are also going to be in the mix depending on how the NFL Combine goes. I mean, maybe Michael Penix plays himself inside the top 10 based on what he just did to our Texas Longhorns and what he may do in the title game. Bo Nix, maybe, obviously, the man's a zillion years old. JJ McCarthy, I don't freaking know. Most likely you have 3 viable quarterbacks coming into this year's draft, and you have about 15 teams that need a quarterback. So I don't know what's going to happen here. It's probably going to be ugly. And from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, what we need to do is we need to make sure we are investing at the very top of our drafts in those guys such as Joe Burrow, such as Jalen Hurts, such as Mahomes, such as Allen, such as Stroud, and get your cornerstone asset early because they're going to be hard to come by just like they are for NFL teams. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, if you enjoyed it, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And of course, if you want to check out all my rankings, if you want to check out our Dynasty Fantasy Football trade calculator, find all of that on flockfantasy.com. Sign up to flockfantasy.com with promo code FLOCK. You're going to get 30% off any subscription. Plus, yours truly will break down your Dynasty Fantasy Football team in a podcast. And find that link in the description in the comment section. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you and really hope we get to see you out with the video later this week.